My husband, Ethan Harrington, CEO of Vertex Solutions, gave me exactly 5 minutes to clear my desk in front of 12 executives. I smiled and said, "Thank you." One by one, 22 colleagues stood up, grabbed their laptops, and followed me out. Chloe, Ethan's mistress, smirked and raised an eyebrow in smug victory, until legal director Victoria Lawson rushed in. "I'm Jessica. Maybe I should start from the beginning, from a month of calculated betrayal that led to the moment the man I once trusted counted down to the execution of his own wife's career. But before I continue, thank you for being here. If you believe that hard work and dignity should never be buried by power and betrayal, hit subscribe. Because this story isn't just mine, it belongs to anyone who's ever been forced into silence." It all began at Sunday dinner at the Harrington estate. The dining room was so long that voices echoed like in a cathedral. Ethan raised a glass of whiskey under the chandelier and said, "We succeed because I know how to spot talent and put it in the right place." His hand landed on Chloe's shoulder. She was seated next to him, eyes gleaming like those words belonged to her. The junior employee I had trained for 3 months, on his orders. No one mentioned how I saved Henderson at 3 a.m. or rebuilt the server while Ethan was sipping wine at the club. I stayed quiet, placed the apple pie I had baked for 2 hours onto Grace's plate, my mother-in-law. She nodded. "Thank you, dear," and added, "You should get more rest." Female leaders who look tired lose credibility. I swallowed a bite of cold salmon, hiding the dizziness after staying up 36 hours straight to patch the system and save the company's data. But I stayed silent, because I knew, the moment I said I was tired, they'd call it burnout, tell me I needed rest, that I should return to focusing on family. Tuesday morning, 2 weeks before everything exploded, Ethan made coffee with the imported Italian machine his parents gave us, but it still came out burnt and bitter. "I'm announcing the promotion this week," he said, eyes locked on his phone. "Chloe's really impressive." She's been staying late every night. My hands froze. Chloe arrived at 9:30, left at 5 sharp. The girl I taught how to open tickets and speak to clients. He had dismissed candidates I recommended, more experienced, more capable. I looked at his reflection in the microwave door and asked quietly, "Who nominated her? Who evaluated her performance?" He didn't answer. "Chloe, the woman Ethan had specifically asked me to mentor for 3 months. I had shared everything, processes, strategies, client accounts. But maybe she had picked up more than I meant to teach. One day before it all collapsed, the company's system crashed. 40 terabytes of data, 8 hours to migrate, 0 room for error. I called the team. Noah was first, still wearing his daughter's ballet recital badge. "She understands," he whispered, opening his laptop. Sophia apologized to her husband for missing their anniversary, then bowed her head and dove into code. Liam, Zoe, the Carter twins, we all threw ourselves into it. The conference room became a war zone, full of coffee cans and cold takeout. Liam joked mid-chaos, "Dysfunctional family." Zoe replied, "At least we chose this one." But no Chloe. Even though I had resent the team message, we saved the company, protected millions of dollars, and Ethan acted like he didn't notice. Then that night, 11:47 p.m., I got an email from Chloe, accidentally sent to me. "Ethan, as discussed, I handled the Henderson matter. She's been overwhelmed lately. Might be time to consider new leadership." I read it 3 times, then forwarded it to my personal email. I sat in the dark, shirt stained with old coffee, and realized, to people who've never truly worked, my dedication looked like weakness. To my husband, once love faded. My devotion became a threat, something to be replaced. My husband, Ethan Harrington, CEO of Vertex Solutions, gave me exactly 5 minutes to clear my desk in front of 12 executives. I smiled and said, "Thank you." One by one, 22 colleagues stood up, grabbed their laptops, and followed me out. Chloe, Ethan's mistress, smirked and raised an eyebrow in smug victory, until legal director Victoria Lawson rushed in. I'm Jessica. Maybe I should start from the beginning, from a month of calculated betrayal that led to the moment the man I once trusted counted down to the execution of his own wife's career. But before I continue, thank you for being here. If you believe that hard work and dignity should never be buried by power and betrayal, hit subscribe. Because this story isn't just mine, it belongs to anyone who's ever been forced into silence. It all began at Sunday dinner at the Harrington estate. The dining room was so long that voices echoed like in a cathedral. Ethan raised a glass of whiskey under the chandelier and said, "We succeed because I know how to spot talent and put it in the right place." His hand landed on Chloe's shoulder. She was seated next to him, eyes gleaming like those words belonged to her. The junior employee I had trained for 3 months, on his orders. No one mentioned how I saved Henderson at 3 a.m. or rebuilt the server while Ethan was sipping wine at the club. I stayed quiet, placed the apple pie I had baked for 2 hours onto Grace's plate, my mother-in-law. She nodded. "Thank you, dear," and added, "You should get more rest." Female leaders who look tired lose credibility. I swallowed a bite of cold salmon, hiding the dizziness after staying up 36 hours straight to patch the system and save the company's data. But I stayed silent, because I knew, the moment I said I was tired, they'd call it burnout, tell me I needed rest, that I should return to focusing on family. Tuesday morning, 2 weeks before everything exploded, Ethan made coffee with the imported Italian machine his parents gave us, but it still came out burnt and bitter. "I'm announcing the promotion this week," he said, eyes locked on his phone. "Chloe's really impressive." She's been staying late every night. My hands froze. Chloe arrived at 9:30, left at 5 sharp. The girl I taught how to open tickets and speak to clients. He had dismissed candidates I recommended, more experienced, more capable. I looked at his reflection in the microwave door and asked quietly, "Who nominated her? Who evaluated her performance?" He didn't answer. Chloe, the woman Ethan had specifically asked me to mentor for 3 months. I had shared everything, processes, strategies, client accounts. But maybe she had picked up more than I meant to teach. One day before it all collapsed, the company's system crashed. 40 terabytes of data, 8 hours to migrate, 0 room for error. I called the team. Noah was first, still wearing his daughter's ballet recital badge. "She understands," he whispered, opening his laptop. Sophia apologized to her husband for missing their anniversary, then bowed her head and dove into code. Liam, Zoe, the Carter twins, we all threw ourselves into it. The conference room became a war zone, full of coffee cans and cold takeout. Liam joked mid-chaos, "Dysfunctional family." Zoe replied, "At least we chose this one." But no Chloe. Even though I had resent the team message, we saved the company, protected millions of dollars, and Ethan acted like he didn't notice. Then that night, 11:47 p.m., I got an email from Chloe, accidentally sent to me. "Ethan, as discussed, I handled the Henderson matter. She's been overwhelmed lately. Might be time to consider new leadership." I read it 3 times, then forwarded it to my personal email. I sat in the dark, shirt stained with old coffee, and realized, to people who've never truly worked, my dedication looked like weakness. To my husband, once love faded. My devotion became a threat. Something to be replaced. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't pick up, but something, instinct, exhaustion, and a kind of bone-deep curiosity, made me slide my finger to answer. "Don't hang up!" Victoria's voice, the legal director, was trembling, barely louder than a breath. "I'm calling from the restroom on the 16th floor, the one no one uses." After a few seconds of silence, water running mixed into her voice. "The hostile termination clause in your contract. Ethan never read it. 6 years ago, when he signed, he just followed where I pointed. The penalty for public dismissal, just the humiliation multiplier alone, is $800,000. But with 22 witnesses and clear wrongful termination, you could walk away with millions. I stood frozen. Why are you telling me this? I heard her breath catch. Because you deserve it. Ethan's about to realize he just destroyed himself. And when he does, he'll blame me. She paused, her voice dropping like a confession. I've worked here 12 years, covered for so many of his outbursts, his missteps. But this time, cheating. This time you shouldn't have to endure the injustice. Meet me tomorrow, somewhere Vertex has no eyes. I have the documents, the things you need. The call ended before I could respond. My phone buzzed again. A message from Jaden, someone from my old team. A screenshot of a Slack channel that had just been deleted. Exodus, 247 members. The messages flooded in. Is it true? 22 people walked out? Who's handling Henderson now? Who's maintaining the servers? My LinkedIn notifications exploded. Emails poured in. 3 rival firms sent short notes. Heard what happened, let's talk. But one message made me stop in my tracks. Rebecca Walsh, the venture capitalist who had turned Ethan down 6 months ago for lack of innovative leadership. Her message was only 2 lines. Your team's loyalty is worth more than Vertex's entire market value. Let's rebuild. I read it 3 times, until an unexpected email notification appeared from Ethan's old internal account. I opened it. My finger froze. A thread of messages between Ethan and Chloe, revealed through an auto-backup file. Dates started over a month ago. Don't worry, I'll handle your promotion. She thinks she's irreplaceable. After that meeting, you'll have her seat. You deserve it more. I scrolled down, and the final message was an image. A photo taken at the hotel where they met. The same night I was pulling an all-nighter to save the system. The phone screen reflected my face, cold, unfamiliar. I forwarded the entire email thread to a folder labeled Proof, locked with a private passcode. Outside the window, the nightlights cast blotches of gray and white against the wall, just like the naked truth now exposed. I didn't cry. I just sat there, listening to the hum of the air conditioning and the steady tick of the clock, knowing my marriage had ended a month ago. It's just that tonight, it came with evidence. I picked up the phone and called my lawyer. 12:07 a.m. My phone vibrated in the living room, dimly lit by the weak yellow light of my small apartment. I had just dozed off at my desk, documents scattered like a crime scene. Please don't hang up. Victoria's voice was shaky, almost choked. Chloe, she deleted everything. I shot up. Deleted what? The entire client database. She wanted to prove she could run your system solo without a transition period. But she messed up the commands. Tried to recover it with junk software she downloaded online, and now the whole database is badly corrupted. I could hear my heartbeat echo like an empty drum. How long ago? 6 hours. The whole East Coast is down. Estimated immediate loss, $50 million. Not counting broken contracts, lawsuits, reputational collapse. Victoria's voice kept breaking. Chloe's been crying in the 16th floor bathroom for 2 hours. Ethan threw a laptop, punched a wall. I'm recording everything. I need insurance for myself. She had stayed late at the office, hidden in the restroom to call me, watching Ethan and Chloe stay behind, risking herself to witness it all. I let out a quiet laugh, a laugh with no feeling left in it. You know, I said slowly, my team would have never let this happen. Be careful. After she hung up, I sat in the dark, looking out over the city. Somewhere out there, Vertex Solutions was bleeding, money and reputation, and Chloe was learning that stealing my team's work and seducing my husband didn't mean she had the competence to lead. 9 a.m., the door opened. Ethan walked in, shirt wrinkled, eyes dark-circled, reeking of whiskey and failure. He tossed his keys on the table, voice hoarse. The database is gone. I didn't look up. He sighed and sat down across from me, avoiding my eyes. The shareholders are furious. They want to sue Chloe. The board's in emergency meetings, stocks tanking. My mother fainted twice. I want to ask you to sign an NDA. I looked up. Sign what? A non-disclosure agreement. They'll pay you $800,000, extend your benefits, write a glowing recommendation. You just have to sign. Don't sue. Don't speak. No competition for 2 years. Make it all go away. I looked at him like he was a stranger. Make it go away? You mean cover up the fact you publicly humiliated me? That 22 people walked out? That your mistress just destroyed a company worth hundreds of millions? Ethan rubbed his forehead, voice dry. All of it. If you sue, I'm done. This family collapses. I need you to help. Those 5 words, I need you to help, fell in the middle of the room like a slow blade. Not, I'm sorry, not, I was wrong. Just a sweetened command dressed up as a plea. I stood, my voice disturbingly calm. You should leave now. He looked up, startled. Maybe the first time, realizing I had truly changed. You don't understand. If I lose everything. No, Ethan, I cut him off. You're only losing what you were never worthy of keeping. He went silent, then turned and left. The door closed behind him with a cold, hollow sound. 6 years wrapped in silence. 6 years. And in the end, all it took was one signature. Not signing, to reclaim my freedom. That afternoon, my living room looked like a makeshift startup hub. 22 people squeezed together, laptops on laps, chairs, rugs, even the windowsill. Sophia held up a napkin where she had scribbled a symbol, shaky but bold. The new company name, she said, eyes shining. Aurora Systems. Liam instantly opened his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. Domain secured. Socials, too. Before Vertex even thinks about claiming it. James, Liam's husband, appeared from the kitchen with a tray of coffee. No one builds an empire on an empty stomach. Pizza boxes stacked high, sticky notes covered the walls, and the Carter twins set up a full color-coded project management board. Zoe sat cross-legged on the floor, phone tucked between shoulder and ear, voice crisp and professional. Yes, we'll send the new proposal within 24 hours. Noah called out, We need legal documents. On it, he replied immediately. My brother-in-law is a corporate lawyer. The energy buzzed, chaotic but warm. We weren't co-workers anymore. We were shipwreck survivors rebuilding a boat from the wreckage. By evening, my phone rang. Ethan's lawyer, his voice worn out like someone who just lost a long match. He's increased the offer to $800,000 plus full benefits. I looked around the room where people were debating our new data system. Let the courts decide, I said quietly. Silence on the other end. Then he hung up. At the same time, the Carter twins wheeled a server unit into the empty warehouse space we'd rented just yesterday. The last rays of daylight filtered through a layer of fine dust, lighting up the cracked paint on the wall like a curtain rising on Act 1. The next afternoon, a white Tesla rolled up. Rebecca Walsh stepped out, cream suit, heels clicking against the gray cement. Her eyes scanning the full 20,000 square feet, covered in old paint stains and flickering lights. Perfect, she said, without a hint of sarcasm. Sophia chuckled wryly. Worse than a half-burned lab. Rebecca turned, smile sharp as a blade. No, this is where beginnings happen. She walked along the wall, her voice steady. Amazon. Garage. Google-Garage. You've got walls and a ceiling. That's already an upgrade. Then she pulled out her phone. Send the contract. $3.5 million for 20% equity and a board seat. Noah nearly dropped his laptop. You haven't seen our business plan. Rebecca looked at him, eyes blazing. I don't need a plan to see 22 people walk away from stable jobs for one leader. That's conviction. That's what I invest in. She stopped at the door, turned to me. Ethan once told me, feelings have no place in business. Today, it's those feelings that brought me here. The next day, she returned with 2 more investment firms. The 3 of them walked through the old warehouse, asked sharp questions about scalability and market share, then nodded and signed another $2 million. As she left, Rebecca said, "Welcome to seed round, valuation 17.5 million." My phone kept buzzing, but the call that made me pause came from Richard Henderson, CEO of Sterling Group. "I heard about the incident at Vertex," he said bluntly. "And I heard about the person who saved my system back then." I could hear the soft clacking of his keyboard in the background. "We follow people, not buildings. Starting today, all Henderson contracts move to Aurora Systems." That evening, 3 more companies, Patterson Industries, Carter Group, and Chin Technologies, made the same announcement. $35 million in contracts within 24 hours. Zoe posted the update, eyes wide. Vertex stock dropped another 5%. 15 total since Tuesday. I looked at the rows of secondhand desks, tangled cords, the ceiling lights reflecting off tired but bright faces across the room. "Monitor everything closely," I ordered. Late afternoon, 1 month later, as the sunlight stretched long across the parking lot, Ethan showed up at the warehouse door holding a bouquet of red roses. 6 years of marriage, and he still didn't know I was allergic to roses, something I told him clearly on our 3rd date. I stepped outside, gently closing the door so my team could keep working inside. He stood there in a wrinkled white shirt, sunken eyes, face tired with a hint of unease. "Can we talk?" His voice hoarse, slightly trembling. I crossed my arms. "I'm listening." He held out the bouquet, like a peace offering. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. I want you to come back to Vertex. I'll reinstate your position, give you a raise, your own office. Everything will be like before." I looked down at the flowers trembling in his hands, the deep red petals catching the harsh sunlight. Something I never liked. I thought he came to talk about divorce, or at least offer a sliver of closure, even if fake. But no. "You think our problem was the office?" I asked quietly. Ethan swallowed hard, trying to smile. "I just want to start over. The job, and our marriage." I stayed silent. "Our marriage?" He lowered his head. "I know. What happened with Chloe was a mistake." I gave a dry laugh. "A mistake or a habit?" He looked up, eyes red. "I didn't mean to cheat. But she made me feel admired. And you were always so strong, so independent. It made me feel useless." I took a deep breath. "You betrayed me, and now you blame me for not being weak enough to please you?" The air between us thickened. He stepped closer and whispered, "I just want to be forgiven." I took a step back, voice calm. "No, Ethan. You don't want forgiveness. You just want to keep your place." "But my heart, you already shattered it." The bouquet dropped to the concrete floor, petals scattering across the hot ground. Ethan bent slightly, but didn't pick them up. "You're still angry. I still hope you'll reconsider." "I have to go," he murmured. I nodded. He turned away, got into his silver BMW. As the car pulled out of the lot, the wind swept the fallen petals across the pavement, torn and tattered like the remnants of a marriage. Midnight. I sat alone in the temporary office, under the soft yellow glow of the desk lamp. My phone vibrated, an encrypted email from Victoria. Subject, severance package. I opened the audio file. A deep male voice, clear. $50 million. He cost us $50 million just for a mistress. I recognized the voice of Malcolm Ford. Board member. The sound of papers rustling, then another tense voice. "The database is completely destroyed." Chloe didn't have access. Ethan gave her full admin rights. Victoria's voice followed. Calm but cold. "He promoted his mistress. She had no experience. This is no longer a family matter. It's an emotional decision with catastrophic impact." Another voice cut in, blunt. "He turned the company into a battlefield for personal revenge. This isn't leadership. This is a $50 million betrayal." Finally, Ethan's voice, small and shaky. I thought she had potential." A loud slam of a hand on the table. "Potential while stealing someone else's work. You destroyed your own company with your bare hands." Then a sigh, the scrape of chairs. The board is unanimous. Ethan Harrington is hereby suspended, effective immediately. I sat still in the dark, replaying it again. Those voices, angry, contemptuous, disappointed, echoed like a final verdict. And in the cold clarity of that recording, I realized justice had spoken for itself. The next morning felt like a whirlwind. At 7 a.m., Rebecca Walsh walked into the warehouse with brisk steps, followed by a media consultant and an army of coffee cups. "We're doing a press conference," she said directly, her eyes lit with fire. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the tech press is demanding a formal statement, and we're going to give them one they'll remember." I looked up and gently shook my head. "I don't want to look like someone out for revenge." Rebecca smiled. "You're not getting revenge. You're standing up. And that's what the public needs to see, a woman who refuses to be stepped on." At the same time, she added, "Ethan is also holding a press conference at Vertex. Same time. He's calling it a strategic restructuring." I laughed. "Let's see how he spins something out of this rubble." We spent the next 24 hours preparing. Noah and Sophia drafted the speech. Zoe handled equipment logistics. The Carter twins built a backdrop with old LED panels, making the dusty warehouse look like a real startup HQ. At 1:45 p.m. the next day, I stood in front of the camera, wearing the same navy blazer I wore on the day I was fired. 22 people stood behind me. No matching uniforms, no scripts, just steady eyes. "Good afternoon," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. 2 weeks ago, I was given 5 minutes to clear my desk, after 6 years of service to Vertex Solutions. And in those 5 minutes, I learned something. That competence terrifies the incompetent, and that sometimes the best gift a place can give you is your exit. The camera shutters clicked like digital rain. Aurora Systems is not just a new company. It's proof that respect is stronger than power, and that real culture beats empty strategy. We've secured millions in investment and retained contracts worth $30 million a year, something Vertex once said would take years. Because we have what they lost: trust. At that same moment across the city, Ethan was giving his speech. Victoria kept texting. "He's sweating." Chloe's sitting behind him, scrolling job sites. A journalist chuckled when he said they were restructuring to increase agility. On TV, the screen split in two. On one side, me, calm, surrounded by my team. On the other, Ethan, face flushed, stammering next to a distracted Chloe. The ticker below read, "Vertex Solutions down another 8%. That night, my phone rang. No caller ID. I almost didn't pick up, but something made me swipe. "Please don't hang up." Chloe's voice was choked, nothing like the sweet tone she used to wear. I've been fired. No company will take me. I'm just asking for a reference, so I can start over. I know I was wrong. I stole your work. I smiled when they humiliated you. But please, just one line, so I don't starve." Her voice cracked into sobs. Pitiful, shaking. I looked around the warehouse, my team still working. Lights gleaming over whiteboards covered in ideas, where people were building a new future with their own hands. "Chloe," I said slowly, "you took credit for everything. From me, from everyone here. So maybe now you should take credit for this too. Your failure. And you also tore apart the family of the woman who trained and supported you. That's the only reference I can give you." Silence on the line. 3 days later, headlines broke across the media. Ethan Harrington resigns as CEO of Vertex Solutions. The press release was polished, exploring new directions, grateful for years of leadership. But everyone knew the board had given him 2 choices: resign or be fired for gross misconduct. He chose the less humiliating route, but the outcome was the same. He fell off the cliff. A week later, our divorce hearing was held privately. I didn't look at him once. In the end, the court ruled. Adultery confirmed. Divorce granted. I received half the assets. As I stepped out of the courthouse, cold wind brushed through my hair, and for the first time, I felt truly free. No more Ethan. No more Vertex. Just me and a new beginning. That evening, the warehouse looked completely different. The Carter twins had strung up warm yellow lights that made even the cold concrete walls feel inviting. Zoe brought in a few small green plants, somehow surviving in this heavy industrial air. Liam had set up a jazz speaker system, mixing softly with the clacking keyboards and tired laughter. Sophia came over, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Not the cheap kind anymore," she smiled. "Rebecca sent a whole case." I asked, "What are we celebrating?" She winked. "Victory. The giant has fallen, and the underestimated ones won." In the far corner, Gerald, Vertex's former maintenance manager, now Phoenix's newest hire, raised his mop like a torch. "To second chances, and to the sweetest revenge." Everyone laughed and raised their glasses. I smiled too, but inside, I felt a strange calm. I wasn't thinking about revenge anymore. I was thinking about the contract we just signed. Global Tech, the corporation Vertex had chased for 2 years. Their CEO called me directly. We watched both press conferences, and we'd rather partner with a builder, not a destroyer. I looked around at my team, people who stayed late, who worked not out of fear, but out of passion. "It's not revenge, Sophia," I said softly, "just success. Revenge is just a side effect." On the other side of the city, Ethan sat alone in the guest house behind the mansion, a mansion he was about to lose once the settlement payments hit. The empire he spent 6 years building crumbled in under a month. And maybe, that night, he realized, when you give someone exactly 5 minutes to pack up their life, sometimes they take the company's soul with them. The next morning, Victoria Lawson walked into the warehouse. She carried a file box and wore a look I'd never seen before, a mix of resolve and shadows. She set the box down on my desk, a real desk, old and scratched but solid. She looked at me, eyes sharp behind her glasses. "I want to be chief legal officer at Phoenix. In return, I'll make sure Ethan never works in this industry again. 12 years fermenting, now it's time to uncork." I was general counsel at Vertex for 12 years. I've watched Ethan destroy careers, cover up harassment, illegally terminate staff. I kept everything she opened the box. Inside were dozens of folders, neatly labeled: termination, settlement, violation. Every time he yelled someone into tears, I documented it. Every time he asked me to fake a report, I saved the original. Noah looked up. "Why did you keep it all?" Victoria smiled faintly. "Because I knew eventually he'd turn on me." And he did. He told the board I was to blame for not stopping the mass walkout. She pulled out a thick folder. 3 years of emails where he instructed me to bypass legal protocols. Sophia gave a low whistle. "Sounds scary." Victoria replied coldly, "No, it's just business. He taught me that. Now I'll teach him the final lesson." I looked at her, the woman who had sat silently in the room as I was humiliated, and realized she hadn't been complicit. She'd been waiting. "Welcome to Aurora Systems," I said. She nodded and pulled out her phone. It was time to get to work. Thursday morning, Marriott Hotel. I arrived early. The conference room looked exactly as expected. Elegant, cold, gray leather chairs, pretending to project power. Polished wood tables like mirrors, overlooking the city Ethan once thought he owned. He arrived 15 minutes late, an old power play. But power had long left him. His Armani suit hung loose on his thinner frame, his face gaunt, eyes tired. Beside him was Gregory Shaw, his longtime lawyer, looking just as drained. "Shall we begin?" Robert said, voice rough. "Mr. Harrington proposes a settlement, $1.2 million, continued benefits for 24 months, and full equity vested immediately." Victoria leaned forward. "One more condition. A written acknowledgement that Ms. West's termination was mishandled. And a mutual non-disparagement clause." Ethan clenched his jaw. I recognized that sign. But for the first time, he didn't snap. He just nodded. The sound of the pen on paper echoed. dry and final. His signature shook. Small, not the bold, arrogant mark it used to be. He slid the paper across the table to me. We looked at each other, saying nothing, but the conversation was in our eyes. I signed, then picked up the $1.2 million check, but felt no triumph. Just emptiness, like I'd won a war that should never have started. Ethan stood, paused at the door, glanced at me once. Then he bowed his head and walked away. 6 months ago, it was all just a far-fetched dream. Now, it's part of Aurora Systems' financial plan. The company that was valued at $75 million this morning. The once dusty, stained warehouse now glows under the LED lights Noah insisted on to improve efficiency and mental health. The old concrete floor is coated in a silver-gray epoxy that matches the Phoenix logo perfectly. Standing desks, ergonomic chairs, and a kitchen corner that smells like fresh coffee have replaced the mildew and mold from our first day here. We're not just co-workers. We're the kind of family many of us never had. A real support system, the kind corporations always promise but never deliver. Liam ran over and pinned another note to the achievement board. Hot news! New deal signed. 40 employees, 12 major clients. The room erupted in applause. Recent job applications all came with a note. I want to work somewhere that values people over profit. The next morning, Victoria knocked and held out her phone. You'll want to see this. On screen was Ethan's LinkedIn profile. The new headline, Independent Business Consultant, listed at a cheap strip mall in the suburbs. His latest post read, Leadership is holding on to trust in adversity. It had 3 likes. 2 were bot accounts. 1 was someone selling ad services. I laughed. Sad, really? Victoria replied coldly. No, that's consequences. Now he works alone, from a rented room above a tax prep office. No clients, no future. His reputation is so toxic, even desperate startups won't touch him. I remembered the Ethan from back then, seated at the head of the mahogany table, barking orders, counting down the 5 minutes that ended my career. Now he has all the time in the world, but nothing left to command. On the last afternoon of the quarter, sunlight streamed through the wide windows onto the pale gray floor, where every scratch had been replaced with the reflection of what we'd built. Everyone gathered for our all-hands meeting. No long boardroom table, no throne-like chairs. Just a circle of 40 people where every gaze met as equals. I stood quietly as the Carter twins presented a new system framework. Zoe discussed upcoming clients, and Sophia laughed as Emma placed a small cake on the table. It felt different. No one rushing, no one afraid, no one pretending to be strong just to earn respect. Here, people work with trust and are seen for their true worth. After the meeting, Rebecca called with news. Bloomberg wants to feature you. The company born from 5 minutes of being fired. I smiled and said, Tell them, this isn't a story about loss. It's about someone choosing to stand tall in the face of humiliation and finding their dignity. I hung up, turned off the lights, leaving only the soft gold glow of evening on the wall where the Aurora Systems logo shimmered. A phoenix, wings spread, proud in the open air. I stepped out onto the balcony. The city lit up at night like a map of living dreams. From here, all the old noises, the yelling, the countdowns, the slamming doors, had faded. Only the wind remained and the warmth of freedom. In that moment, I realized I'd come far enough not to want to go back. Ethan once gave me exactly 5 minutes to pack up my life, and I used those 5 minutes to begin a new era where self-worth became capital and scars turned into foundations for freedom. I closed my eyes, breathed in, and heard the footsteps of teammates quietly leaving the office, Emma's soft laughter echoing down the long hallway. Here, no one belongs to anyone, but everyone belongs to something. Meaning, if you've ever been forced to start over from wreckage, remember this. Sometimes it only takes 5 minutes for someone to break you, but it also only takes 5 minutes for you to choose rebirth. And between those 2 moments stands you. the one who decides whether you fall or rise, and call it freedom.